Hello and welcome to Chaos. As you can see, Ham is gone. Not forever, not permanently. You can see we've still got all our wonderful 00 locomotives on display. We've got some things boxed up and whatnot. But yeah, Ham is gone. For now, I wasn't happy with the layout. I wasn't happy what needed to be doing. There's a lot of things I wasn't happy about. I'm not happy with this big ass table because this big ass table is just too big to move. At the minute, I'm off work with some weird back injuries. So I decided to rip up the track. And as it's a new year, I thought we'd start a new project. And why not start a slightly different scale, still within the OO reign? I thought we'd do some 009. So this series is going to be looking at our soon-to-be named, maybe even in this video, 009 railway, because for Christmas the wonderful missus got me this wonderful Bachmann Callilin loco in green, and she got me a wonderful braked third class coach to go with it. And I sold a bunch of stuff to Rails of Sheffield. There was a lot of Lego minifigs and some railway buildings I weren't using, and some other bits and bats. And I bought myself some 009 slate wagons. So let's move over to anyrails and whatnot and leave this chaos behind, and let's go through the new project. So this is the dream, or most of the dream, for the 009 layout. The old honey line. Honey line is kind of like the working title, and we'll kind of go over that in a second of why it's called the honey line. So as you can see here, it's an extremely simple loop, because one of the things I always do is I overcomplicate things and make things unnecessary. So essentially we've got a hidden bit which makes it look like the train goes somewhere and disappears, or a train comes from somewhere and disappears. We've got a siding, which will be like have a little goods yard, which is represented by this little shed here, little watering funnel and coaling stays, and this is going to be like a little halt in this area, and we've got a little passing loop, which lets us kind of like other trains pass. So, we could have one train running and then it stops here and it has to wait because this is a single track line. This in fictional reality would go off somewhere else up on the mountains, and this one would kind of like then go somewhere else. So you've got, it's essentially coming from somewhere, it's going somewhere. And you've got a passing loop. So if I get another 009 engine with a wagon, we can pull one in here and we can stop it and we can have it there, and we could potentially do some little shunting. Because the idea of this little area is it's mostly scenic. There's going to be something here. I don't know what it is. It's going to be, whether it be a castle, some ruins, like a little campsite or something like that. But the main purpose of this area, the reason why the narrow gauge railway came up here, and we'll look at a map later on. I made a map. Is this is an area where there's a bunch of apiaries. Apiaries are where bees live when they make honey. So this is where people come to get honey for the meadery. For the hidden forest meadery, and this is kind of like at the foot of the mountains. This is kind of like a mountain shelf, base of the mountains. So we've got the rocky line here represented by this red line, and it's in a bit of a kind of like mountainous basin. So that's kind of the plan of what it'll look from a bird's eye view. And then we've got, if we look at the 3D view, this is kind of the idea. This bit's raised up because mountains. If you've ever been to a foot of a mountain, it's not very level. It's quite steep. So you've got this area that comes out on this kind of almost what you see in American canyons and stuff like that. This big, I'm probably going to make it out of wood, wooden bridge. It's not going to be pristine. It's not going to be perfect. It's going to be very kind of with the terrain made out of materials that were local and can be done. You know, you've got the wood, you've got some apiary. We'll probably get some little animals. I've always fancied making my own little figures and miniatures out of clay, and clay and using wire armatures and that. And I quite like the idea of, some deer or like maybe a little bear hanging around, and we, do like a little bit of a scene of the people that are in charge of this apiary pleading with the bear, giving it some honey, or the bear's like a friendly bear. But I digress. But this is one of the things I like about what you can do with model railways and modelling in general and making dioramas and stuff, is you can kind of do what you want to do, and you can put little mini scenes in and little funny things and stuff like that. So we're going to have like a bit of a piney forest thing going on, the tunnel. This is all going to be rocky around this kind of area. This is going to be like a rock wall as well, because this little square that we've got cut out there is where the controller's going to go, and this is like a little channel for the wiring, and the wiring will go down the back of the board and will connect into there. The points are probably going to be kept manual. I might mess around with point motors. I don't know. I don't mind manual points. I don't mind reaching in and clicking in, as long as they're easily accessible. One of the problems I had with Ham was to make it work the way I wanted it. It would have been points right at the back. The way the baseball and the track had been laid, there wasn't really room for point motors and stuff like that. And then it needed all wiring, which is crawling all underneath it. And it was a mistake from inception of not planning these forward. This is a very simple 2x4 layout that can be kind of lifted and manhandled as you see fit, and we've got little streams and stuff like that. So I'm going for picturesque, for something for the little train to go round. So that's the anyrails plan. This is where the plan started. This is how it's done. It's all on the trial version, as you can see, of anyrails. So what we'll do now, let's have a look at that initial kind of like this track plan on in practice. So this is the kind of initial planning stage that I had around our little narrow gauge railway. As you can see, it is essentially made up using N-gauge track, bit of polystyrene, some paper on a 2x4 board, and this was just to kind of like take that plan from anyrails that I did, just to see how it worked up. Now, most of this N-gauge track comes from is it the Cornish Riviera Pullman, which was a DCC N-gauge set that I bought because I was playing with N-gauge at one point, and an N-gauge starter set, the first radius one. Now, I did really like it. Came with a warship, Magpie, in that set, and it was good, but I didn't like the size. I loved the DCC stuff, the lights and everything like that. It worked, but I just couldn't get on with the scale. I think if I ever do go small scale train, like smaller than 00, it's most likely going to be TT. because N gauge is too small. Now, originally the plan for the 009 layout was to use N gauge track because I already had it. I've got some other different points, electrofug points and stuff like that. It would have worked out pretty well, pretty easy. And I was going for a South American style narrow gauge track, which I've been watching a lot of Nick Lira's train Steam Classics, or what, Steam Legends. I can't remember what the series is called, but he does a lot of kind of like, he did a lot of hunting of steam engines like around the world, and the ones in South America, like Argentina and is it Patagonia and places like that, were absolutely fantastic. Basically, you look and a little steam engine looks like it is driving through a field because the track's all overgrown and stuff like that, and it looks fantastic. Compared to a lot of European really well laid, meticulously placed sleepers and engineered and stuff like that, this is literally rails on, grass grows, dirt covers it, berate, wooden powered steam engine in the 1990s is gonna go through it. I suggest looking at those. So yeah, but as we've sort of seen from the anyrails plans, there's potentially going to be quite a large bridge section. I can't fill in the points. And although I'm not usually bothered about what, it doesn't look prototypical or it doesn't look correct, an N-gauge, a 009 train running through on N-gauge track, it just doesn't look right for some reason. It throws your mind. I don't know, it looks too toy train. And not that I'm saying everything looks professional and realistic and stuff like that, but you kind of want to be taken away sometimes, and you want to this could be real. So yeah, so this is kind of like the board, and this is where we were with the initial planning bit. And there's a couple of interesting, well, they're not interesting, a couple of things I did with this board a while ago, because this is always going to be, was always going to be a 2x4 layout. I just never got any ideas for what I could be. Originally, it was going to be like an industrial mine layout, but it wasn't big enough for what I wanted to do with it. We've got a couple of bits going on. So this has already got polystyrene stuck to it. I did it as a bit of padding, and I deliberately left a trough down the back because that was always going to be a wiring channel, which is kind of here, so I can run wires down the back. As you can see on this layout, we're going to have like a hidden bit anyway at the back. That's where all the wiring's going to be, and I'm going to build a rock face around where the controller area is. So we've essentially got this, self-enclosed little mountain shelf plateau kind of thing layout, which this particular line is called the Honey Line. This is my imaginary island. So I like to, whenever I'm doing any modelling project, because I think I've said in the past, I come from a bit of a wargaming background. I've always enjoyed creative writing and things like that. But the thing I've always loved about all these things that can tie them all together is world building. So I made my own island. Now, the reason I made my own island is because I struggle to kind of like, when I'm working to a prototype, when you're doing your prototypical railway stuff, is I struggle to do things, of my own imagination, but I also want to do things of my own imagination, because when you sort of say, well, I'm going to do a branch line from my hometown to Sheffield, a direct line, or if I'm going to do recreate the old part of the old LMS line that went from Doncaster through Edlington across the viaducts in Conisbrough and to like towards Grimethorpe and stuff like that, which I was planning to do at one point. I get too caught up in the researching the details and trying to find everything about it, and unfortunately, because some of the places are a little bit obscure and not every single little bit of information is listed and there's not pictures everywhere, I get frustrated with it, and then I kind of like stop focusing on the thing that I want to enjoy, which is build model train, build nice scenery, make it go round and make it do things, and more on, well, is this right? Was this here? What were the telegraph poles like in there? How many telegraph poles were they? Edlington Holt, well, that was just a carriage. What type of carriage was it? And things like that. And it basically, it fries my brain a little bit. So world building for me is kind of like always been well, I don't have to do that. If it's my world, I get to design things, and then I can take aspects of what works from, X, Y, and Z. So it helps me to then plan things like this. So I decided to make an island. Bit like Sodor, really. I'm ripping up the Rev. So this is the island. We haven't got a name for the island yet. But what we have got is the first populated part, and I'm going to populate it all eventually. So the island was deliberately made with very shallow sea around the coast, so it's hard to actually land there. It's very mountainous. It's hard to settle there. But sometime in probably an age of exploration, maybe 16th, maybe 17th century. Some people did manage, maybe even the Romans managed to do it. They got around a bit, didn't they? They managed to settle in this place of Monty's Landing. Monty's my dog, so obviously he takes pride of place of being named after a load of things. So you had Monty's Landing, and eventually the people started spreading out in this little basin, mountainous basin along the coast. And eventually, years, decades, centuries pass on, we started moving up. Now, the biggest city of this, and it's a small city, is the city of Ham. And we started modelling Ham. And this was one of the reasons why I ripped all the layout, because I was like, oh, this is a really good idea. We did this bit with the missus, and then it was kind of like, yeah, but the model railway doesn't really represent any part of that. So that's to be revisited. So we've got Ham, and we've got a couple of other kind of like towns and cities down the coast and little villages and stuff like that. But the bit that we're going to be focusing on for this build is the Hidden Forest Meadery, which is sort of southwest of Ham, next to the village of Three Rivers, and above Quarryton, and it's kind of like in the bottom of the mountains, and it's a meadery. They make mead. Mead is an alcoholic drink, if you didn't know. It's very nice. I've made my own mead before. It's not as nice as some of the stuff that I've drank in the past, but it wasn't too bad. Some people called it paint stripper. I quite liked it. It's honey based, so it's quite sweet. It's quite it's like a thing. They come in different types of meads. But anyway, so to service this meadery, there's three things you need for mead. You need honey, water, and yeast. It is the perfect drink. It is why it's one of the best alcoholic drinks. I mean, you can say that a lot about a lot of alcoholic drinks, but this one tastes nice. So in the forest is a variety of like spots where there's apiaries and bees and stuff like that, and we're focusing on one of these little areas where you have working crews go out and pick honey from apiaries, as well as other ingredients, because you can mix mead with like blackberries and different fruits and stuff like that to make it different types of mead. So that's kind of like where we're at in my own world. Is in the hidden forest, north of the hidden forest, like pretty much where the mountains really start to turn into mountains. We're in kind of like the foothills of the mountains. It's one of the last lines. There's probably maybe a couple of spots up the line where that's more for getting, nice, good, fresh spring water and stuff like that. Because if you're going to have a meadery, you want all the best ingredients. And if you've got all these wonderful natural ingredients, which this island's got loads of, because there's not many people live here, then you're going to kind of make use of it. So the hidden forest has got loads of little narrow gauge railways running through it. It all goes to the meadery, and then there's kind of like a branch line that goes from the meadery to the main line, which links Ham, Monty's Landing, and then as you go further down the coast, you've got Colonel's Hill, Wheaterton, and a couple of other little places. So yeah, that's like the world building aspect of it, and that's where we're building it. And to me, stuff like this is very important, because I've now got a guideline, not a very restrictive guideline, but a guideline of what I want to see and what that area needs to have in it. It's on the foot of a mountain, so it's going to be mountainous. It's got forests. It needs plenty of plants for pollination to attract the bees and stuff like that. So we're going to have lots of different wildflowers. I'm thinking heathers and lavenders and all sorts of other little alpine colours. And yes, we can't model those, especially in 00 scale, to degree, but we can get those colours. We can get our pinks and our whites and our purples to represent these colours, and then we can have the impressive pine trees that grow up in mountains. So yeah, that's where we're based, and that's what we're working to. Okay, so we've gone over the world building side of it. We've looked at the actual plan, and then doing a little bit of a dummy test practical. So let's now look at the actual nitty-gritty costing of it and what we need. Now, this is an Excel spreadsheet. I didn't actually use this. I did some pen and paper work. What I basically did is we went on anyrails and we selected all the track, and we went on details. And this tells you every little piece of track that your layout has used. And then we went on print, and we printed it off. And I went through basically what I need, and I did two tables essentially, which were sort of what I needed, and then what came in the 009 starter set. So the 009 starter set from Rails of Sheffield is somewhat like £89 and 95p. Which, one thing I have found about 009, it is not cheap, especially if you're getting ready to run stuff. But that's by the by. So I worked out what I needed, how many pieces I needed, did some extra notes. So, like, I don't need two pieces of FlexiTrack, but if I have one extra, if I inevitably make a big mess, I've got a spare. And then kind of like how many standard radius and double radius curves and straights and turnouts and stuff like that. Got the individual prices up from anyrails. The reason, not anyrails, Rails of Sheffield. The reason I use Rails of Sheffield is because it's pretty much on my doorstep. I've got my loyalty points, and I've found they give fair trading prices. Which is what we're going to be doing. But yeah, so what we needed, how much each individual costs, and whether or not it was in the starter set, and then, like I said, little notes. So if I was to get The curves, are they the double radius or single radius curves? Yeah, they're the single curves. There's 8 in a pack. I'd have 4 spare if I was to buy them individually. And also, if I wasn't to get like a pack of double straights, I can use 2 single straights or a bit of spare flex. As you know, it's the starter set doesn't do it, so this made it work out. Give me a price, so added them all up for how much it's going to be individually, which will be £157.25. Now the starter set does come with 2 sets of buffers and a plan book. The plan book I think is £1.95. They're useful to get ideas. They usually have a little diagram as well as to show you like the different radiuses of the curves and how they all interlock and stuff like that, which is quite good. These aren't necessary. If it was, it'd be £162.85. If not, it'd be £157.25. Now, if I got a starter set and then just bolstered it with what I needed, it would be £138.30, which gives me a saving of £18.95, which is good. And then I had a thought, because obviously I want to spend as little as possible on this layout, and I do have a lot of stuff that I don't need, because I'm not bothered about doing Engage. It's not something I can see me ever really wanting to do. We kind of got a little stuff to trade bit. So we've got the DCC Cornish Riviera Pullman. It's the Cornish Express. The Pico Engage First Radius starter set. Some electro points. I've got a micro scale Scalextrics mini challenge, which is 1 to 64th scale electrics. I've never used it, so yeah, some stuff like that, and I'm going to have a route through, and I'm sure there's a couple of other bits that I can get rid of, because Rails of Sheffield, it's not just railway stuff they take. They take figures, Lego, you know, any bits of toys and stuff like that, which will pay for this, essentially. At time of recording, next weekend is the Donny Racecourse Model Railway Exhibition. Looking forward to going to that. It'll be, I think it's the first proper big model railway exhibition I've ever gone. So whatever I can save on this means I've got a little bit more money to buy bits when we get to the Donny Racecourse show. So that's kind of it, and that's all for this video. Hope everyone's enjoyed it. Hope everyone's found it useful. From what I've watched, because I watch a lot of YouTube, this type of video is probably not going to do well. And it is a bit different because I'm going a bit more in depth with the kind of like the planning and the rationale and stuff like that. But the reason I make these videos is, one, I enjoy making videos, I enjoy editing, and I enjoy recording stuff. Not so much filming, as people may notice, because you know that's what I used to do. I used to work in the film industry many moons ago, before various ailments forced me into other lines of work. But yeah, so like I said, hope it's useful. Hope you enjoy. And then part 2 of this video is we'll have a little bit of a kind of like a what I actually managed to get and what I actually traded in, and we can do the second step of laying out the board and planning it all up. So until next time.